Good morning, Facebook Live. My name is Debbie.
And I'm Kyle.
And holding the camera is our buddy Marissa. We are educators at Project Oceanology, and we're excited to take you to a new habitat in Long Island Sound today. But before we get started, I want to take a minute to shout out the teachers and students who are watching today. If you want to get a shout out live on camera, put the name of your school or where you're watching from right in the comments, and Marissa will fill us in on how our comments are coming in. We're here to explore a pretty cool habitat. We're right now on Pine Island in Groton, Connecticut. Just over this side of us, you can kind of see the Groton Airport complex that's across from the Pequannock River. Thank you. Project Oceanology is right over there, so we are very close to home. And then on the far side of Pine Island, if Marissa will spin all the way around. So we got a little channel right here. And that's Fisher's Island Sound, or Long Island Sound proper. So it's a little bit more exposed on that side of the island. We're a little more protected on this side. Yeah, you can see all the way to North Dumpling Island. I can see that pretty clearly. And the land that's even behind that is Fisher's Island. So we're protected from the Atlantic Ocean by Fisher's Island and Long Island. And also most of Pine Island. So you can see it's kind of a sandy spit, but it's also got, spit's not the right term, but it's got all sorts of scrubby brush. I can see some beach roses. And then at the far end of Pine Island, there are some more larger trees, deciduous trees. And yeah, so around the corner that way is more Long Island Sound. We can see New London from here. We were going to go visit Ledge Light this morning, but had a little setback. But we can see the Avery Point Light, and around the corner from Avery Point would be the Thames River. So we've got a pretty cool spot right here for a couple of reasons. The Pequannock River, right over where the airport complex was, the Pequannock River is flowing this way. So we're right near the mouth of a small river, and we're also right near where Long Island Sound is coming in and meeting it. So this is kind of an area that changes flow a lot with the tides and also with the current of the river. So, in the water, unfortunately, the glare on the water is not working to our benefit today, but underneath the water are some pretty cool things, some plants called eelgrass, and they're pretty important. Where are the ones that I set aside for myself? Oh, you're right, my left. All right, so these are eelgrass. They're a little bit different than some of our other plants. Do we have any shout outs from teachers or students in the comments yet, Marissa?
Glenn from East Lyme Middle, Rosario from Waterford School, and Hazel from Mystic.
All right, so good morning, Hazel, Mr. Duell, and Rosario. I'm really excited to hear from all of you. Glad you're tuning in. Now, these are pretty cool. Now, if you had come here, I don't know, 10 or 15 years ago, we would not be finding nearly as much eelgrass. I knew I wanted to do an eelgrass Facebook Live because of how rich our eelgrass bed has grown in here. So Kyle, do you want to describe some of the adaptations of the eelgrass here?
Sure. First I want, maybe some of the viewers can guess, like what's different between this producing organism and maybe some of the other ones that we commonly find in the water, like seaweed and whatnot. I wonder if people know what's different about this. But some of the
we have not.
Not yet, so let's see if they can guess before we get into that.
So I've got an example of algae here. This is different than eelgrass.
Yeah, so we have a few different organisms down at the bottom.
I also have some eelgrass tangled into it.
Yeah, of this habitat.
But the brown I'm talking about.
And all these organisms are using photosynthesis to produce their own energy using sunlight and nutrients from the water. But you can see they're very different, not just in color, but also in structure. Did we have any guesses yet as to how they're different? No? All right.
Well, I'm noticing some differences here. Yeah. So this long part here, they both have sort of length to them. That's important because they live in the water. They want to reach up towards the sunlight. So that's a similarity. But I'm seeing this structure right here doesn't seem to be as long on the eelgrass.
Right.
Let's see. I'm noticing there's a difference between where the plant is ending, and there's something pretty exciting going on here.
Yep. So you notice both these organisms have some sort of structure in place to kind of hold them into where they're growing. This grows right out of the mud in the sand on the north side of Pine Island here. And this one, you can see, has these little brackets, these holdfasts that are holding on to this clump of mussels, right? So this is holding on to the dirt and the substrate. This is actually holding on to organisms that are growing on top of that. And they're a little bit different in structure. You notice these ones are a little bit thicker. They're a little rubberier. These have these thin little root-like systems coming off. But more importantly, you can see how it's kind of thicker right here. These actually form a rhizome that grows kind of parallel with the surface of the substrate so that it can spread out laterally, and then new growth can kind of pop up off of that. So it's like a long underground stem off of which these other growths can come.
So, Marissa, did anybody get the right guess?
Yeah, so Iris said eelgrass isn't as long.
Good point.
True.
Absolutely.
I don't know if they can hear me, but
Iris said that not as long. It's not as frilly. Yep.
they have different ways to attach.
Absolutely.
Yep.
That's the big difference that we're pointing out right here. The holdfast is grabbing on and holding on only, but the rhizome is more like roots. So eelgrass is a vascular plant, and algae is a totally different group of photosynthetic organisms. It's totally different. So the holdfast does not uptake any nutrients at all.
Right. It's purely just for holding itself in place. But these are, like Debbie said, vascular plants. So just like the plants that we have on land, they're going to be drawing in nutrients through this root-like system, and they have a vascular system. So basically, they're moving nutrients and water throughout this blade, whereas the macroalgae just kind of it diffuses across this surface area here, so it doesn't need to spread it out all over the place, really.
So that's a main difference. Now, you're probably noticing that I'm holding a handful of animals here, too. So these plants together have created a habitat. So our eelgrass here does a great job of creating this habitat. When they spread and seed out here in the mouth of the river, where there's a lot of flow, the river is going to be carrying things with it and depositing sediment. So that those rhizomes help the plant, but they also trap the mud. So by trapping the mud here, it's improving water quality because it slows the flow of the water a little bit here. By having the plants grow up in the water, it's going to slow down how fast the water is flowing. It's going to trap that sediment and create a habitat for other things to move in. So then the mussels were able to move in, and then the algae was able to hold on to the mussels. So just by having the eelgrass bed here, it's increasing the biodiversity in the area. So it's pretty exciting to have this eelgrass bed. Oh, I can actually see there is an organism.
Getting close.
Whoop. I don't know if you can even tell. I saw it because it was not as muddy, but
No.
I've got like a little tiny worm on my finger. Maybe, I don't know if it'll probably come right off my finger if I rinse it.
That's all right. So Mark from Boston wants to know how healthy the eelgrass beds are this year.
This year they're looking fabulous. They are really looking very healthy, and it didn't always look that way. Like I was saying, 10 or 15 years ago, the eelgrass beds over here were kind of struggling. There was a disease called wasting disease that was really impacting the health of the plants, so they weren't doing as well independently. But there were also some human impacts that can affect them. So I'd like to hear in the comments what kinds of human activities or impacts you think might hurt the eelgrass beds. While we're waiting for those comments, I think it's time for us to go look to see what kinds of organisms might be using the eelgrass beds as habitat, besides the mussels, because we already got a handful of those. So we have, well, actually, there was one thing. Did you see any on here, Kyle?
There actually might have been a little snail on there.
When we first pulled the eelgrass out of the water, we noticed there was an animal directly using, yeah, I got a ton of them, the eelgrass. They're just the most minute little snails
You might not even be able to see them, but they're kind of...
That little black speck on your camera
Yeah.
is actually a tiny little snail that is grazing on the eelgrass. So something very tiny like that, that's a primary consumer. It's eating a plant or eating a producer.
Yep.
So that's pretty low on the food web, but that's also going to be food for other organisms further up the food web.
Yep.
And I think we found some eggs.
Yeah, we also find that a lot of organisms will use this eelgrass as a surface for them to deposit their eggs. So it's just increased area. I don't know if you can see those little white specks there, but those are probably snail eggs. So they will use this as a hiding place, as a source of food, and a place for them to actually lay their eggs on top of too.
And I bet there are more animals that do the same thing, that'll use the eelgrass habitat as somewhere to hide, somewhere to eat, somewhere to reproduce. That's an important part of a nursery estuary.
All right, so we have some human impacts.
Sure.
So Lauren thought maybe trawling or using a net.
Mm-hmm.
And Ira said maybe chemicals, like oils from the boat and fertilizer runoff from golf courses or an airport, which we're close to both, in the water could hurt the eelgrass.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so
those are great guesses.
Yeah, that last one that you mentioned, the runoff from land and extra fertilizer in the water, that actually is a big problem for eelgrass because all that leads to a big bloom in algae populations and phytoplankton, and those can typically kind of obscure the water, so they will absorb a lot of sunlight and also block more sunlight from penetrating into deeper water where the eelgrass lives. So they kind of shade out those producers down the bottom and can inhibit them from growing. So they can basically create too much shade and soak up all the light before the eelgrass gets any and can shade them out. So
yeah, so if they're not getting enough sun, the eelgrass beds will die back. Mm-hmm. In terms of fisheries, you could use a net out here. But the equipment that was mostly used was a scallop dredge. So another bivalve, we found a bivalve living here, the mussels, but historically scallops used to really like this area, so maybe we'll find some, I don't know. But scallop was a popular food, still is, and so people would use a dredge, which would drag along the bottom and totally uproot those rhizomes that are so important to keeping the eelgrass beds here. There's also an invasive species. That's not a human impact, but there are some invasive species that are starting to impact our beds here. Perhaps you might be a fan of swans. They're beautiful birds, right? But there might be some, there might actually be some swimming around this area because they love eelgrass. But most of the birds around here will just sort of munch on the tops of the eelgrass. They'll dabble in the water and just stick their heads in and grab the tops. But the swans' necks are so much longer that they can actually uproot the rhizomes too. So that's not necessarily a human impact unless, I'm not sure if the mute swan was actually introduced deliberately or accidentally. Not totally sure, but that species...
I think they came over to populate fancy gardens. So they were introduced by people, definitely. But I think it'll be a good time for us to get the seine in the water and see what kinds of animals we can find here. Now, we're not going to be going directly into this delicate ecosystem, dragging our net through the eelgrass and wrecking it. We're just going to be kind of going over it and seeing what we can find.
What's nearby? All right, I guess let's see what you think we might catch in the net. Remember, we're not dragging directly through the grass, but things that might be living right near the eelgrass beds that would be catchable in a seine net. So this net's only about 4 feet tall, and we're going to seine between the bottom of the water and the top, and just along the shore here, and then we'll pull it in and see what's living in there. So make some predictions, put them in the comments. We're dying to see what's out there.
Yeah, take some guesses as to what kinds of animals you think might utilize this sort of habitat.
All right, I'm going to follow Kyle into the water just like this.
Are you going around the boat or are you going this way?
What do you feel like?
Wherever. What do you think's best?
How deep can you get out there? Let's see.
Let's find out.
Yes, let's see how deep it is.
Let's see how deep I can get without...
Yeah, we're just past the high tide, so the water is still fairly high, but we don't know how far we can go without dipping our microphones in the water. You'll be excited to know we've already caught a rock. Let's see. Excellent. 2 predictions so far.
All right, so I can just see the eelgrass beds growing right in here. So I think I can get just in front of them.
Perfect.
And we might be able to scooch this along without stamping on it.
All right, do you want to,
All
since
right.
we're already facing this way, let's
Yeah.
hope we catch something. So we're trying very hard to keep the bottom of the net at the bottom of the water, so we'll catch everything that's in between the top and the bottom of the water. I can tell you right now, it feels a little chilly, even with my waders on.
Yeah.
How cold do you think this is, Kyle? Make a prediction. I think it's probably about, I don't know, 15 degrees Celsius.
I was going to say a little less than 15 degrees Celsius. Yeah. So.
We're right on the same page then.
Yeah.
I could hear some oyster catchers chirping. We didn't see any on our Facebook Live last week, but after we went off camera, we went and found another nest of oyster catchers.
We're gonna look later too.
Yeah, we are. We're going to look later to see if we can find any chicks. It's that season. All right. Beautiful.
All right.
What kinds of predictions we have, Marissa?
Alright, so we're hoping for fish, maybe flounder, crab.
Flounder and crabs. Juvenile flounder do like to hide in here. We often find winter flounder. The young ones will hide in here. Crabs, they're blue crabs that love this, mostly for the little fish that are using this as habitat as well. You want to swing past me?
Yeah, so I'll keep going.
And I'm going to
Swing
just
around you, Debbie.
rotate.
I'll see if I can.
Is it very heavy?
Not very. I'm just.
So one organism that we sometimes catch in here is the lined seahorse. A lot of people don't realize we have seahorses right here in Connecticut, but sometimes we find them out here in the summertime with our summer camps. We're really excited and privileged to be able to offer some summer camps for students. This summer we have our 3 different kinds of day camp, our Ocean Explorer Academy, a day camp version of our overnight camp, ocean camp. We also have some marine science research experience camps and virtual camps too if you're from far away and can't travel. Ooh, I think I saw something. Maybe not. Maybe not.
All right.
Well, if we didn't catch anything, we can go for another swing. Oh, I see some shrimp.
I see some fish movement.
Woo-wee.
All right, let's get
All
some
right.
water in this bucket.
So, ooh, I don't see it. Oh! So we have a young lion's mane jellyfish right here. And yes, it's stinging me, but no, it doesn't hurt. Oh, look we already have a juvenile fish.
And some crabs.
Sweet.
Oh, so we did catch crabs, Chris.
Sometimes we get green crabs and lady crabs out here too.
Alright. And we did get some of that eelgrass.
We did. I'm kind of surprised we didn't get more, but maybe that 15 degrees is kind of keeping those fish out of our net today. We could go for a second swing if there's time.
yeah.
I'm keeping an eye on the...
What's that little thing?
What is that little thing? Ooh!
Is it a puffer?
No.
What is it?
A mole crab?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, yeah.
Nice. We got a little tiny mole crab. Or ally.
Maybe
It looks a lot like one, but I'm
don't
not
know.
sure what that is.
Maybe some kind of I've never
I'm gonna
seen
have to
that
take
before.
out my key and figure out what that is. But yeah, we got 2 of them.
Very nice.
All right. Well, we could go. Right now, it's only 9:50, so we could go for one more swing. But I want to make sure that we take a look at what's in our bucket before we look at that too. So we have a beautiful shrimp living in here. I didn't get a good look at the crab variety that we have here.
I'm gonna hold them off. I couldn't get.
Oh. Let's see, I think this is a green crab, although it's kind of not green.
Yeah.
It's a little orangey. This is a green crab. If you've watched some of our previous Facebook Live episodes, you've probably seen a crab like this before, but I was confused by its color. It's a little yellowy orange, which is not totally unusual. When they're young, they're often bright green, and then they got kind of blackish when they're older. And then they have orange on the underside when they're older. So again, this little crab was using its habitat, the eelgrass. for a hiding place, for a place to find food, and its parents, I think we're using it as a place to reproduce.
I think so.
All right. Let me get a good look at this shrimp here. This beautiful shrimp. Ooh. He's hopping around. All right. Boing! Did you know that shrimp can jump? They're pretty good at it. Now, that's a behavior that a shrimp is trying to swim, but it doesn't work so well on my hand. But you can see that they look a lot like their relatives, lobster, because they've got little claws. I'm trying to get a good view of the claws, but sorry. No, they're totally see-through.
Right. Good.
Okay. Now, I think we got 2 different species of fish in here. Again, I didn't get a very good look.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. Does anybody recognize this type of fish? Oh. Do you know what this one is, Kyle? I can't see the barbell, but maybe if I go get that tank real quick. You grab the fish, I'll grab the tank, and that'll be an easier way for us to look at it.
Or we can look at the jelly again if you want.
Oh yeah.
Do you want me to hold it?
No. It's okay. All right. So you can see this lion's mane jelly here. A lot of you probably see these if you go to the beaches in the summertime. They can get pretty big, and they do have stinging cells. They are actually, I believe, one of the largest species of jelly in the world. They don't get that big around around here. They usually cap out at about 20 inches or so, but in the North Atlantic they can get many feet with tentacles hundreds of feet long. You can kind of see there's also some animals crawling around on it. There's a little amphipod that was hiding up in the tentacles there.
Oh, nice. So they're also campers.
Yeah.
All right, now I put these 2 fish in the tank so you can get a good look at that. Is it better without me behind it?
Let's see. Oh,
Hello, little one.
is that a baby to talk?
Yes, I think so. So the one that is right here, sort of forward of the other fish, is what we call a tomcod. I'm looking at the body shape and then also how many dorsal fins it has, or the fins along its back. Another thing that I was looking for, I kind of alluded to before, was the barbell, or the little teeny little
whisker on the bottom.
Whisker, yeah. It's like a little sensor for him finding things along the bottom. So that's our little tiny tomcod. They will get significantly larger, but so will its friend that's right here. That is a baby blackfish, or tautog.
So if you tuned in last week and saw us catch a bunch of those, they were a lot bigger. But these ones...
Was that only last week? Oh, golly.
Yeah, I think it was. So these animals will get much bigger, but while they're young here, they like to live among the algae and the eelgrass, hiding and ambushing smaller prey. And then when they get big, they'll move out into big rocky outcroppings further offshore. But these eelgrass beds do make a really nice nursery for a lot of smaller animals.
Yeah, so we've got a couple little swimmy things in here that we don't often catch, so they're a little unfamiliar to Kyle and Marissa and I. They remind me of mole crabs, and they might just be the juvenile stage of it, but they're kind of funny. I'm going to have to look up what they are. Do you recognize that, Kyle? I've never caught them here, so again, every day is different when you're, doing stuff with Project O.
You can get a good look on those green eyes on that thing.
Ooh. Who are you, little friend? You can see its little legs waving around.
Yeah, so some sort of arthropod, not sure the species.
Clear as we can be right now.
Yeah.
An arthropod.
Yeah, but you can see they can zoom around pretty well. They swim very nicely.
So balls up.
Yeah.
The reason they remind me of mole crabs is the way that they ball up. They have that hard, sort of rounded, muscular body. Mole crabs will often dig down into the sand near the shore, so it's possible that they just kind of zipped up out of the sand when we were stepping along the beach, and they came into our net. So I realized that I was plugging all of our other summer camps, and I forgot to talk about the last camp, and it's the one that I'm running, our Undersea technology camp. So if you really like to see how all the different technology that we use to study the ocean, you could come check out all of our camps at oceanology.org. But that's probably a wrap for our eelgrass beds. I think we might want to go out for another swing through there and see what else is living in the eelgrass. But thanks for tuning in. On Thursday, we're going to make another attempt to visit the lighthouse,
Yep.
hopefully with fewer hitches this time. So we're going to go to Ledge Lighthouse in New London and learn what it's like to be a lighthouse keeper. Okay, so that'll be 9:30 on Thursday morning.
Yeah, and if we find anything else fun while we're exploring the eelgrass, we'll post pictures of it on our Facebook, so you can stay tuned in there. Feel free to leave any questions about any of the animals we found today in the comments, and we'll try to get back to them as quick as we can, all right? All right, thanks
very
everybody.
much. Bye, guys.